Hello everyone, welcome to my smart home tour for December 2020. I've attempted to put a video like this together for quite some time, but I really couldn't find a way to make it less than 2 hours if I tried to go into any kind of detail. I currently have more than 600 entities throughout the house, and so trying to go into detail on all these and explain how each and everything works in the house, the video was going to be at least 2 hours or longer, and no one really wants to sit through that. So what I've decided to do instead is just make a trip through the house and hit all of the highlights of the things that are installed without really getting into any kind of technical details. I will show, for those that are interested, the integration or the type of equipment used in parentheses up on the screen. But really the goal is to get through this in 30 minutes or possibly less. Before I get into that, though, a few things just to keep in mind. Everything that I show here is integrated into the Home Automation Hub. In my case, that's Home Assistant, which allows them to interact with one another and perform a lot of complex actions and automations. I'll show a thumbnail image on the screen as well of how these devices are represented or controlled within Home Assistant, but I won't go into a lot of detail. Also, as you see each device, realize that each of these devices can be interacted with in multiple ways. The majority of them can be controlled by voice. They can all be controlled via Home Assistant, obviously, and most of them still have the original, what I'm calling Muggle controls. And in case you're not familiar with the term Muggle, that's from Harry Potter, and are considered ordinary humans without any magical abilities and almost no awareness of the existence of magic. So when I talk about a Muggle control, I'm normally talking about a standard wall switch. You flip the switch on, the lights come on, you flip the switch off, the lights go off. So basically, someone can interact with the devices with no knowledge of the home automation system. And finally, nearly everything you see here is operated locally on my network without any internet connection required or cloud service. This means my Comcast service can go out, which it does, and most of my devices will continue to operate normally, and you would have no idea that the internet was even out. It also means that all of my data and activities are not being shared with any other companies. Everything is staying here locally. So with that, I'm going to turn my picture off here, and I'm going to wing it without any real script or notes. I'm sure I'll get tongue-tied and have to pause and restart this a few times, but let's get started. So while we're here on the outside of the house, we're going to go ahead and start with things that are installed externally on the house. And right off the get-go, I'm going to show a device that just goes against what I just said, and that's my Ring Video Doorbell Pro. It does operate in the cloud. Unfortunately, while it does have some integration with Home Assistant, it does require a cloud subscription, and there are limited things that you can do with it in Home Assistant. It is on the list of one of the few devices I've got left in the cloud to eventually replace. Next are a couple of driveway lights. These are set up so that they basically follow the sun. The lights come on at sunset and go off at sunrise, which has the advantage over a standard timer-based system that, at least here in Indiana, in the winter, it's completely dark by 5:30 p.m., and in the summer, it stays light to almost 10 p.m. And so if you had these set on any kind of time, you would constantly have to readjust them. But by tying them to sunrise, sunset, once they're set up, you never have to touch them again. They're also, and it's not visible in this particular picture, but a rear link camera on the front and the rear of the house. While these do provide some security, that's not really the intent of why these cameras are installed. We'll see why these cameras are installed a little bit later in the video. And one of my favorite things is my mailbox sensor.
You've got mail.
When mail is delivered throughout the house via the various Google devices will be an announcement that the mail has arrived using the old original AOL You've Got Mail recording. Moving into the garage, first thing we're going to talk about is the overhead lighting. Now again, this has a smart relay installed behind the Muggle switch, or the original light switch. So you can flip the light switch on, lights come on, flip the switch off, the lights go off, just like they normally would. But by having the smart relay installed here, it allows you to do a number of additional things. So for example, there are door sensors installed that when the door opens, the light comes on automatically. This was really handy because the exterior service door to the house, there was no light switch on that part of the garage. So when coming in from the outside, you would enter a dark garage and have to try to stumble across the garage to get to the light switch. In addition, there are motion sensors in the garage. So once the lights come on, as long as there's motion detected, the lights will remain on. Once the doors are closed and no more motion is detected, the lights will automatically go off after 45 seconds. This avoids leaving the garage lights on all night. Next up is the Tailwind Smart Garage Door Opener. This is actually my second garage door opener. The first one had some issues with not correctly reporting the state of the door, which can be a major security issue if it tells you the door is down when it's actually up. I like the Tailwind because it adds additional security in the fact that it uses not only your phone, but actually uses the Bluetooth connection between your vehicle and your phone. So it knows which vehicle and which person showing up and arriving. And if you actually have two garage doors, it would open the proper garage door. The one thing about Tailwind right now, though, it is currently only a cloud-based device. The manufacturer has promised both an API and local controller coming in 2021, so I'm looking forward to that. In the interim, until that arrives, however, I do have vehicle sensors and a secondary overhead garage door sensor installed that will interact locally with Home Assistant. This basically allows me to determine whether a car is home or away, and also lets me know whether the garage door is currently in an up or down state. Here is one of my wife's favorites. It's what I call the parking assistant. This particular side of the garage is not very deep, so it's a fairly tight fit with the wife's vehicle. And originally it was going to be the old tennis ball hung from the ceiling, but I decided I could do something a little bit better than that. To get an idea of how this works, I'll throw up a short video here. So as you can see, it comes awake when it detects a vehicle, basically provides a countdown to the proper parking position, tells her when to stop the car. If she happens to pull too far forward, it will give you an indicator to back the car up before she hits the step or runs into the wall. Okay, a few other things here in the garage. Located back here in the corner, you can barely see that little tiny white square in the back is a garage cam. Again, while it does add security, that was originally installed with the previous garage door opener, where, like I said, I was never quite sure that what the app was telling me aligned with the garage door. So this gave me a visual way to verify whether the garage door was opened or closed. It's always a good idea to have a backup, especially around things involving security to your home. You can't really see it here, but on the wall is one of 6 or 7, I believe, Google speakers, Google Mini in this case. And that allows you to, again, have voice interaction with most things in the home. For example, if I happen to be in the garage, standing still by my workbench back there and the lights go off, I can simply ask Google to turn on the garage lights. It also does everything else that Google does, so you can play music and ask Google questions. And you also get the voice announcements, for example, like the mailbox through the device. And finally, in the garage is a multi-sensor, contains temperature and humidity of the garage and light level, which does actually interact with the overhead lights. If the garage door is up and it's a nice bright sunny day and there's plenty of ambient light in the garage, then the lights will not come on automatically when you open a door. And there's also an LED alarm status indicator that basically lets me know at a glance whether the alarm system is armed or disarmed. And starting here in the laundry room, one of my wife's favorites and actually a requested automation from her was washer notifications.
The washer has completed its cycle.
This basically is able to detect when the washer has completed its cycle, and a Google announcement is made again throughout the house. And of course, once the washer notifications, the next request was for dryer notifications. This one was a little bit quicker, more difficult to do because obviously the dryer runs on 220, not 110, so I had to be able to read the sensor lights on the front of the dryer to know when the dryer started and when the dryer completed.
Your clothes are dry. Whoop, whoop.
And the last thing in here is the primary alarm control panel, which, as I mentioned before, is integrated. It does allow me to do automations. For example, if both vehicles are gone, both phones are outside of the home zone. for say 15 minutes, then the alarm system can automatically be armed in case we forgot to do it when we left. Moving on to the kitchen, the kitchen is primarily about lighting. We'll start out with under cabinet lighting. You can't see off to the right of the frame here. There is another set of the cabinets with under lighting. And even though they're not wired together, the lights underneath the cabinets do stay in sync. What happens on one side is also reflected on the other. These can again be controlled by voice through the Home Assistant, or there is a small Muggle button under each cabinet that you simply press the button to turn the cabinet lighting off or on. Like the under cabinet, there's also over cabinet lighting. Same thing applies here. The lights stay in sync on the upper cabinet. They can also be synced to the lower cabinet lights if desired, and can be controlled by voice, Home Assistant, or via a Muggle button. There is we call the kitchen sink light. This light actually is again tied to sunrise sunset. It basically stays on as a night light, so it comes on at sunset, goes off at sunrise. But again, there's a typical Muggle switch, so the light can be turned off or on at any time just by flipping a switch. The main lights are dimmable, and they're actually connected via four-way switching, which was a little bit of a challenge, but there are 3 different switches to turn these lights off or on. And the interesting thing is really only one of the switches is connected to the lights, to the load. Basically, the other switches just simply stay in sync, and one switch tells the other switch to turn the lights off or on. There is a camera to cover the porch area installed in the kitchen as well. And again, a Google Hub Mini. We'll take a little closer look at this towards the end, but it acts as a Google device, but it also has a display to allow you to use touch control to control the kitchen lights or other devices in the house. Moving on to the family room, there is again a lamp here that is once again tied to sunrise sunset, but can be controlled by voice or through a standard switch. There's another family room cam that covers basically the family room and camera area. I will admit, a lot of people think, well, these cameras are creepy, and they can be, but none of these cameras are accessible via the cloud. Everything is local. PlayStation 3 is here, really just serves as a media player. DirecTV receiver, which is tied into Home Assistant. Samsung Smart TV, and another set of temperature humidity sensors for the family room. Moving into the living room, there really is no automation in this except for about a month a year when we put our smart Christmas tree there. This is a tree that will do over 100 different patterns. It is custom lighting. Anyone's interested in seeing about a 5-minute video of some of the lights and color patterns, I do have a separate video for that, and I'll provide a link to that in the description. Moving upstairs, first the 2 bathrooms, little automation in there per request of the wife, but there are Google Minis in each of the bathroom, again for voice notifications, voice control, music. It is nice that you can do whole home audio through all these Google speakers, and play the same things such as Pandora throughout the house. Moving into the master bedroom, again, this was a request of the wife, and one of the things she really likes is control of the bedside lamp. Previously, she often goes to bed and then will read a cookbook or be on her iPad. And previously, when it was time to go to bed, she would have to get out of bed, traipse across the room, flip the wall side switch, and then cross back across the room in the dark. The switch on the lamp is way up high, and of course, if you turn the lamp off via the lamp itself, when you flip the wall switch on, the lamp doesn't come on anymore. So by installing a relay behind the Muggle switch, and again, the Muggle switch will still control the light, she's able to ask Google to turn the lights off and on directly from bed at night. There's also a temperature humidity sensor for the master bedroom, and just a couple of media players, a Roku and a DirecTV receiver. In the second bedroom, there's a Lenovo smart clock, which basically functions almost exactly like a Google speaker, so it does allow you to do voice interactions, to receive notifications from Home Assistant, as well as acting as a really nice alarm clock. Again, another set of temperature humidity sensors, and a bedside lamp, which functions basically like the one I just described in the master bedroom. The difference is here that the clock is basically aware that it's in the bedroom, and so it does offer an option to swipe down and simply turn the bedroom lights off via touch once you're safely in bed, instead of crossing the room in the dark and stubbing your toe on the bed frame. Again, this is the wall switch. It's a Wi-Fi enabled switch. That's what actually controls that bedside lamp. The Samsung Smart TV and a DirecTV receiver are also in this room. In the guest bedroom, there's a DirecTV receiver, and that is it. I've seen other people do, and I'd like to take a stab at this, is basically bed occupancy sensors. So it knows when someone's in the bed, and at night, if someone gets out of the bed, would turn on some under-bed LED lighting to simply allow someone to be able to cross the room to go to the bathroom or whatever, again, without stubbing a toe or banging into furniture. So that's one thing I would like to do that I haven't done yet, but it's on the list. Hey, moving into my office, first thing here is a Chromecast audio. It's hooked into the primary stereo system. Again, it will do Google announcements. Obviously, I can't speak to it because it's one way, but Google can hear me from the nearby guest bathroom. It's primarily used to stream SiriusXM or Pandora or anything like that to the stereo system. And again, I can just simply ask Google to do that. Over here in the corner is my 3D printer. It's fully integrated into Home Assistant. It allows me to monitor the progress. Not part of the printer, but added custom LED lighting. Not only does this help provide lighting for the printing when you're working on the printer, but the lights will actually change color to indicate status. For example, the lights will go red when the hot end gets too hot and you've got to be careful not to touch anything. It'll turn green once the print job is done and the print is cool enough to remove from the build plate. I also have a energy monitoring, basically kill switch that the printer is plugged into, since 3D prints can often take a very long time, 8, 10, 12 hours. The printer often runs unattended, but the camera installed on there and the integration allows me to keep an eye on the printer even if I'm away from home at work. And if I see anything that's going haywire, something's going wrong, it gives me the ability to remotely kill the power to the printer. So it's a nice little safety feature. Also in the office is a TCL Roku TV and Tableau. And Tableau is basically a device that allows me to receive free over-the-air HD signals via that big black antenna you see on the wall and send it to all the other smart TVs in the house via Wi-Fi or Ethernet. This is nice because I was never able to get local over-the-air channels in the basement, because obviously a local antenna is not going to be able to pick up the signals from a basement. And my only other option was to try to snake and run coax cable to some kind of external antenna. This solved all my problems by being able to simply send those over-the-air signals to the basement over Wi-Fi and Ethernet. There's also LaserJet integration, Synology server that basically, for my case, it does backups and other things, but primarily for the home automation, it holds all of my photos, music, and videos, and basically allows me to stream those to multiple devices throughout the house. And this little black box you see sitting there is the Home Assistant server. It's basically what runs the entire house. Okay, so finally we're going to move on to the basement, which I call the playground. There's a lot of stuff down here. The wife gives me a little more leeway to try things down in the basement. And we're going to start off right off the get-go with LED stair lighting. It took me a little bit to sell this, but I sold it as a safety feature. And to be honest, it truly is. When we watch TV, we tend to dim the lights, and even though there's a side light there, that side light also dims with the overhead lighting. So the stairs can be kind of dark when you're watching the TV. So these LED lights do provide a nice extra lighting. Once again, I'm going to show a short video here to give you an idea of how these lights work. Okay, you can see that basically there are motion detectors at the top and the bottom of the stairs that allows you to see which direction the lights go. The second motion detector will turn the lights off. If it doesn't detect the motion, they will go off automatically after 15 seconds. I will say for all the other stuff that I have in the house, this seems to be the wow factor when people come over and visit. Even though it's really not that complicated of a thing, but people do like the auto stair lighting, and it can be, again, turned off, or the lights can be permanently turned on. It doesn't have to be automated as you see here, but people really seem to like the stair lights. Okay, we're going to move on to the main lighting in the basement. And once again, the overhead lighting is dimmable. It's via three-way switch configuration, and just like the kitchen, the switch at the top of the stairs isn't physically connected to the lights or even the bottom switch via a traveler or any other thing that you would normally see with three-way lighting. There are also a couple of bar side lights that are controllable. There are lower cabinet LEDs, what I call mid-shelf LEDs, and upper cabinet LEDs. These again can be synced together or they can be controlled independently. There are LED lights around the dartboard. If you haven't figured it out yet, I really like LED and LED lighting. LED lighting around the pool table, and there is a matrix on the wall. This matrix can show text and also show images, but not in real fine detail because there's not enough tiny little pixels there. And once again, to get a better idea of the LED lighting, I'll show a quick video. Okay, as you can see here, basically with one click of a button, I can set a theme for the basement. And what the theme does is it turns on all of the LED lighting, sets the proper colors, and sets the patterns. This happens to be my Colts pregame. For some reason, the screen, it looks more purple than blue. And the matrix here is really so bright, it's kind of overwhelming the camera. So move over into the kind of the home theater area of the basement. Again, the overhead lighting is basically tied to the other overhead lighting that you saw. It's all one system. So again, those are controlled by the switches and can be dimmed. But you'll notice a number of lamps here. These are all controlled by Philips Hue. There's lamp 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is out of frame here, and 2 lights behind the television. So those can all, again, be controlled together, be controlled individually. They will do warm white, cool white, so they function just like a normal lamp. They don't have to be all these multicolors. And one nice thing is a Hue Play sync box, which is finally integrated with Home Assistant. I've been waiting for that for quite a while. I had the Hue the sync box really on the day of release, and have yet, until this integration came out, was unable to use it in Home Assistant. So the sync box allows you to take these lights and sync them to either music, video, or games. And once again, I'm going to show you 3 really short videos of those different integrations. So this is the music sync mode. Different color palettes. I think this is just set on some default color palette. Okay, so next we'll take a look at the video sync mode. I picked a particular video here with lightning really just to show the reactivity of the lights, that is nearly instantaneous with the TV. There really is no lag that I can really detect. I will also say that there are different levels of intensity, and normally I wouldn't watch a video at the high intensity that you see here. This is really just for the demo. So normally when I would watch a video, I would put it a little more subtle, dim the lights a little bit so you really get the ambiance with watching the video. But it really does add a lot. And finally, we'll take a look at game mode. We'll sync with the game. This probably isn't a good game because it has red and blue and that's it. Obviously, the person playing has a virtual reality headset on and can't see the lights anyway. But for something like Call of Duty or Fortnite, it really is kind of cool to have the lights synced with the game that you're playing. So that was a couple of three real short videos just to show the different synchronization modes with the Philips Hue lights. A couple of other lights in the garage. There is a secondary zone, which I call the rear of the auxiliary lights of the basement, and mechanical room lights. These are controlled by a two-way smart switch. Moving on to the home theater, most of these integrations with all this equipment is done via the Harmony Hub and not necessarily the individual components. So I wasn't going to talk a lot, but this is a screenshot of kind of the home theater control, or part of it, in Home Assistant. The nice thing here is that by touching one button, you can control everything in the home theater system. So, if you want to watch Netflix, you simply touch one button, it turns on all the right components, sets all of the right sources, sets the Roku to Netflix, and you're ready to go. So even though most of it's done through Home Assistant, these devices can be integrated as well and sometimes offer some additional features beyond what can be done via the Harmony Hub integration. This is something that I added this past summer. If you're like me, I've basically been working from home since March, and I set up a work area in the basement just to have a little more space, and sometimes spending 8+ hours down here in the basement. And if you've noticed, there are no windows in my basement, so I don't know if it's raining, snowing, sunny, windy outside. So I took the idea from what some of the cruise lines are currently doing with their interior cabins. I decided to create a virtual window in the basement. And remember those cameras that I installed outside the house? Well, that's really what they were for. So in this case, basically it's a live feed from that backyard camera and a live feed from the front yard camera. Again, these can be controlled through Home Assistant to switch the video. But if, like in this picture here, it's a bleak, dreary, rainy day here in Indiana, and I need to pick me up, I can switch over to a whole bunch of different other video feeds of beaches or mountains or something else. So surprisingly, it really does make a difference down here of being able to have that window sitting beside my workstation. And a few other things. Again, temperature humidity sensor are present down here in the basement. There's a game room sign that is automated and can be controlled. And my coin-operated retro arcade, which was a labor of love to build. It's currently not integrated, but I am working on trying to get some integration into Home Assistant for this arcade, but I'm a little leery about messing up the arcade, so I'm taking baby steps with the integration of that. Just real quickly, the ways that Home Assistant is accessed, obviously via a tablet. The one you see here on the left actually sits in the basement. Each tablet or display can be customized for the particular area. So the one you're seeing there is really set up to control everything in the basement, although you can access all of the other devices as well. Obviously, it can be displayed on a laptop or desktop computer, and a really nice mobile app as well. So that's it. I'm going to cut this off now. It wasn't a lot of depth, but I do hope to do additional Home Assistant videos, break these things out so I can get a little deeper in depth on some of the devices and some of the automations. I also have set up a blog. There's nothing on it yet, where I'll start writing up some articles like I did with my home arcade. So there is if you're interested in that home arcade, I'll put a link down in the description to the blog for how the arcade was built. So that's going to be it for this video. That was a really quick tour, and if there's anything in particular you saw in this video you'd like to know more about, please drop it down in the comments, and I can start going into more detail on the things that people want to see the most. If you're interested, I'm not looking to monetize this channel, but you can subscribe by clicking the subscribe button down below. There's also a little bell icon if you want to be notified whenever I do post a new video. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and more to come.